through worldwide, even through the Brandmeister network. So if you wanted a repeater, you went to the DMR mark, but you connected it to Brandmeister. Uh, as many people know, DMR mark and Brandmeister has its similarities and differences. DMR mark has its own set of talk groups. Brandmeister has its own set of talk groups. But as you can see, as the two trees are standing next to each other, as they get bigger, the limbs kind of intertwine and intermesh, and that's what we're going to get to on this next page. With your network activity, on your TAC 310, 311, 312, those are all connected through Brandmeister and DMR Mark. So if I'm on DMR Mark and my dad is on Brandmeister, we can still talk repeater to repeater or hotspot to hotspot. They have an intermesh capability on that, as well as your statewide groups and your nationwide groups. So 3100, which is the USA Nationwide Talk Group, it will work on DMR Mark and on Brandmeister, as well as the Alabama Statewide, which is 3101. Those will work on DMR Mark and Brandmeister both. There are two main pieces of equipment used to access the DMR network. One is a repeater, and the other is a hotspot. Typically, when we all know repeaters, if you can't get into them, you can't get into them, and that's where the hotspots come into play, like what Petey's got on the table there. If you are outside of repeater coverage, you can use that hotspot, such as that one. I've got one here as well. I'll pass it around, let everybody see. That one can be hooked up to Wi-Fi, and basically it's just a simplex node that lets you access the network via Wi-Fi or a wired Ethernet connection at your home or your mobile data connection. Usually on your activity levels on DMR, your local talk groups are usually low level of activity. Your statewide talk groups usually have medium level, and TAC 310 and your nationwide talk groups usually have high levels of operations. That's why usually on your higher level of activity talk groups, we have them set up dynamic. That way that they're not using up all the data that we have for the repeater that's allotted. We only are allotted 2 gigabytes a month of data with the internet plan that we have. And so the way that's set up is, like I was saying with the dynamic talk groups, after the last RF is passed to the repeater, Brandmeister has it set up to where it will shut that talk group off within 10 minutes to conserve your data usage. Because even though you're not transmitting to the repeater, that repeater is still receiving that data from the network and still using that data package that we are paying for. So when operating on a repeater, make sure you pause 3 seconds before you push the talk. This gives you a little bit of latency time for when someone's keying up or talking. That way you don't talk over them. 1 second pause after push the talk. This will allow your radio to sync with the repeater in the network. If a time slot is in use, it will usually be shown by an indicator light or a time slot busy sign on your radio. If a talk group is in use, you may not immediately hear an active talk group, but when switching to a talk group, different talk group, you may need to sync your radio with the repeater. Avoids calling CQ on the repeater. Usually just keep your call sign, especially if it's hooked to the network. Somebody's usually listening. I know TAC 310 and Alabama Statewide and Central Alabama talk groups. I know usually I can throw my call out within 3 or 4 minutes. Somebody's coming back to me. Usually, they might be listening at their house or something. But just listen to some of these talk groups. Even though you may think might not be activity, there usually is. And avoid long QSOs on area-wide talk groups as well. A lot of times these area-wide talk groups, such as say, let's just give Gulf Coast for example. So if we're down in Mobile, we're using Gulf Coast on an area-wide channel, but we're in range of, both of us are in range of the repeater, switch over to that local talk group. What that does is a lot of times several repeaters might be linked full time to that talk group. And so that keeps several repeaters from being tied up all at one time. There might be 6 or 8 repeaters that are linked full time to the Gulf Coast talk group. And on to the dashboards. A dashboard is a way to monitor your activity using computer mobile device. Brandmeister has a little dashboard that they can use. They also have Hose Line, which gives you a view of all the active talk groups and active users of that talk group at the same time. But as of now, Hose Line is down. I think there's some folks that work with Brandmeister, but not with Brandmeister directly, that come up with this, and I think their servers are down right now. You was able before to actually listen to all the data traffic going across the network. So you could go into your computer, go to the host line, click on the talk group, and listen to everyone. And that was another way to kind of monitor stuff. And if you heard a QSO that you wanted to jump in on, you could then queue up the talk group in your radio without actually having to tie up the repeater. And this is just a example of the NetWatch that's used on the C Bridge on the K4USD network. And this is what the hose line looks like when it works. You actually have, you can see up top it says group worldwide, and shows all the users that are active in that talk group at the same time. And there's links to NetWatch and hose line. And so that's basically all that part on the introductory to DMR itself. Now we're going to move on to code plugs. Does anyone know what a code plug is?
Been fighting us for 3 days.
It can be very, very discouraging, can it?
You got a week or 2.
So what we're going to show is I'm going to show you pretty much all this on the CPS. So when building a code plug, there are 2 main elements, which is your talk group name, talk group number. When you're doing this for a repeater, it's always going to be on group call. A private call would be set up like you're using a hotspot and say, I want to talk to Jim Bob. Well, I would type Jim Bob's number in on my software on a private call. I could link him up directly through my hotspot to his hotspot. And basically how it shows here, like your local 2 is a group call, ID 2, or talk group number 2, TAC 310 is group call, and number 310. And this actually looks more complex than it actually is. You'll always set your mode as digital. You'll set the frequency of the repeater, transmit and receive, your color code. The color code of the Sheffield repeater is color code 3. Bandwidth is 12.5 kilohertz. You'll select your time slot that the talk group uses. You'll select your transmit, your contact transmit, and your RX contact. You can or your receive contacts. You can basically set multiple receive contacts in a list on some certain radios to where if you are just monitoring the repeater, it will receive all the traffic that you tell that radio that you want to listen to. So if you want to listen to TAC, say Alabama Link, in Alabama